Hello, hello, good morning, and welcome to the show. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. Hey, everybody. It is October 13th, 2024. I needed to do some messing around with the audio beforehand. So if everything is sounding okay, let me know in the comments. I want to make sure that everything's doing good. I have a special guest today. But before I do, I just want to say that there has been, since I have been getting the podcast out, there has been a massive spike in listeners, and I'm really, really excited to see it. So thank you. We're back. People who are listening to the podcast going out, it's going out twice a week, every Monday and Wednesday, until we catch up, which is going to be a couple of months. So if you want access to the current episodes podcast, as soon as I can get it out and ready, it does go out ad-free for patrons. If you want to check that out, go to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. I do have a guest, and I want to get him in here because, man, this is one of my favorite people. Secular Rarity, Elliott. Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm very happy to be here, man.
I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah, and look at us. We're looking snazzy today, man.
Right? It's been a while since I've worn the jacket, and you were just like, we should do old school. We should dress nice for the audience. I think that's a really good idea.
Good, man. Our Sunday best, that's
Sunday
what
best.
I hear, right?
Definitely. So how have you been, brother?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. I've been, really lucky enough over the last few months, just getting to do more and more type of stuff like this, both online and in person. There is just a really vibrant, wonderful community of atheists and humanists and just non-religious people of a lot of different stripes in kind of the Middle Tennessee area. And so we all get together and we hang out and we, sure, we vent and we rant and we make fun of some things, but a lot of what we do is checking in with each other, and just gathering and being present and just supporting each other in our lives and saying, hey, what's going on for you next week? Is there something I can help with? And that's just, it's so powerful, man. That's just so, it gives you all the good tingles and it's nice. It's nice.
Good. I'm really happy to hear it. So I know I only have you for an hour.
Yes.
So I want to make sure that I get the phone number out there because we need callers. I have a call screener waiting to take your call. If you want to talk to Elliott and I, you can call 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436, or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. We want to talk to you about what you believe and why. We want to talk to you about your faith and maybe your lack thereof, or especially because it's Elliott and I, philosophy and apologetics, theology, all of that stuff. Oh, we dig right into it. So today is the day for it. And always it is ad-free. It is, the calls are, the expense of it is taken on by us. So no worries about, phoning in or doing any of that stuff. We're making sure that that's good on our end. With that said, we've got some time before some calls come in. So, I know, right?
Let's chat.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll fix all the problems. We got this. What's a problem? Somebody give us a problem. We'll fix it right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Two full representatives of everyone on Earth. We're definitely.
That's right. That's right.
Oh no. Well, I there are so many things that just personally I wanted to talk to you about. I ran into the biggest rockhound at the Saturday market yesterday, and I know, and this isn't the time or place for it, but apparently, just so you know, if you ever decided to visit, that in and around the mountains where I live, jade and petrified wood are in abundance. I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I'm sure you probably have heard this before. Do you know why we have petrified wood?
No.
Why it exists at all?
No.
because there was a period of time where the earth existed and trees grew and fell over.
Right.
There wasn't any living material that could break it down. There was no bugs that ate trees. There was no bacteria that disintegrated it and decomposed it. And so the trees just sat around forever. And eventually they would go through the process of fossilization because they'd be covered and they would be replaced with minerals. There was literally a period of time where trees couldn't be decomposed on the earth.
I had no idea about, really?
That's crazy, isn't it?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I guess in my mind, I thought that, if a log fell and maybe fell in like a bog or something, that it might become petrified after so many millions of years. But we have bacteria and shit that will eat that. That's interesting.
Yep. It doesn't happen anymore because now all of this other life has developed. As we've recently discovered, there's some new bacteria that can actually break down plastics, which is an absurd revelation, to find that a living creature can utilize, this polymer chain, right? This massively complex structure, and can actually do something with it and break it down on a chemical level like that. That's phenomenally interesting. Again, up until recently, we lived in a world where that didn't happen. That didn't exist. And so we could soon live in a world where all of our plastic, every time we're done using it, it's completely disintegrated. It is actually broken down on a molecular level. And so now there could be a layer of plastic in our
in our strata. Yeah.
Isn't that cool? Cool, great, not so great. Like I know there's problems with it too. But
that really gets me. So the Saturday market is like a big thing in Portland downtown every Saturday, right? And that just kind of blows my mind, the idea that, whatever the next species that comes after humans, it might have a Saturday market where they're just like, oh yes, petrified, plastic. You got to get down to that plastic layer. And then someday the big trash patch that's out in the ocean, that is going to get found. It's just going to be like the gold mine of that is so interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that. Yeah. Look at that. That is a really, really cool little fact. I had no idea.
You guys learned something today. See, you can go tell all your friends that atheists aren't complete idiots. We know stuff about trees and plastic.
Oh my God. Oh, we have a bunch of callers in the queue.
Oh.
I know. We've got one that they're still getting screened. Oh, but we have one that wants to talk about AI and polytheism and AI's impact on religion. How come we haven't talked about that?
Yeah, where have you been?
The tech bros have you been talking about AI and religion? Has that something that I haven't just been doing? Has that been something?
No, I was asking the caller. I was like, "Where's this caller been?"
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
Call in.
And then purity culture, fundamentalism. We've got some really, really good calls on the line, so I'm really excited about it. But I think we've got a little bit more time. I know that I only have you for an hour, and I'm happy that you're here.
Yeah, me too. I wish I had more time, though.
Well,
I'm coming back. I'm coming back soon.
Yeah, we're going to have you on again in, 2 weeks?
2 weeks, I think. Yeah.
Dude, it's just so much fun to do, like, shows and content with you. That's just, I'm glad for it. But in the meantime, actually, if you don't mind, I'd love to shill just a little bit.
Do it.
Yeah. So, like I was saying before, the podcast has had a really big growth spike. that ad-free versions, everything is up to date, and I'm getting everything out for patrons on that level. Clips are coming out, and they're getting a lot of really, really great traction. I'm doing my best to go through and add show notes and timestamps to things after the fact. It's taken me time to catch up, but I'm going to get there. It's going to take me a couple of months to really go through all of it. But the show's back in a way that I'm really, really excited about. And I know that you know this. The audience does not. But there are some interesting things in the works for the future of this show. And you don't even know this, but the next time you come on, there's going to be something different about it. So, I'm ready. Yeah, okay. So, I know that you somewhat regularly go on a YouTube show that I was on last week. Let me see if I can pull it up. Oh geez, I just had a feedback because I had that up. Give me just a second and I'll tell you exactly what it was, because I had a lot of fun with Cynthia.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Cynthia McDonald on Let's Talk. Holy crap! I had such a good time. Link is in the description for the last live show, but we went on this tear about Star Trek, and I think I pissed quite a few people off. It was a lot of fun.
Good.
But you know what? We have our first person who is screened and ready to go. Our call screener Bree is kicking butt trying to get through these callers and get them ready for us. So thank you, Bree. Let's talk to Freya in Illinois. Freya, you are live.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Let's see. Elliott, can you hear Freya? Freya, can you hear Elliott?
Yeah, I can hear you both. You're both a little peaking, but other than that, you guys are good. You're clear.
Freya.
Okay, great. I calling you with the website again. I had problems last time, so I'm just trying to hold the microphone at a constant 1 foot distance from my mouth because I'm a loud talker. Okay.
I am happy to tell you that as far as Wirecast is picking you up, you're sounding great.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So what did you want to talk about today?
Oh, I wanted to talk about AI and futuristic religions. So, I mean, this is kind of fringe stuff right now. I mean, I was reading think pieces about it like 5 or so years ago, and I used to be in a Facebook group called Christian Transhumanists or whatever, right back when I was a Christian. Mm-hmm. There are people who are looking at the potential of technology now, machines that can think independently of human beings, and theoretically someday in the future may be improving themselves or being able to read people's minds, or managing people's lives, sometimes in a personal way, maybe in a society-wide way. You've probably heard of ideas like Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity, right? Where it's like, where human beings and their brains get connected to AI, and, it's like this virtual paradise or hell, whatever, that everyone's living in.
Yeah.
Right. You've heard of ideas like this, right?
Oh yeah, people were throwing that around, thinking that the metaverse was going to be like that, something like Ready Player One. Yeah, we'd all be connected to each other in some digital world. I don't know. I think we're a lot further from it. Maybe I could be wrong. Time will tell. This is up on the internet, so at some point, someone's going to point back at this and be like, "Wow, Eric was a moron," or Eric was right. I think we're incredibly far away from it. I think that just like people threw around the metaverse as the next big thing, and everything needed to include it, I feel like AI, in the way that we have it now, is so far from creative thought that, I don't know. I feel like we need to inject chaos into it in a way. So hear me out. I think that, how do I describe this? So Freya and Elliott, y'all play D&D or have played D&D? Yeah.
I played it a bit. I played it a little bit.
Okay, so on the alignment spectrum, you go from good to evil and lawful to chaotic, and we like to think of ourselves as lawful. We like to think of ourselves as following a strict set of rules, and I think that when it comes to computer programming, it follows that set of rules. It follows that guideline because that is what it is made up of. And I think that one of the things that make us human is the fact that our brains are just fucking firing off, like doing weird shit all of the time. And I think that chaos is something that is fundamentally human, that we are yet to really inject into any kind of artificial intelligences that I think is necessary for creativity.
That's interesting. I have a slightly different take. I think there's value in that, though. I wonder if what we're talking about as chaos is like true randomness, or it's just our current inability to map it all out. But either way, I think it does add for that element of randomness, where I do think is something that seems to be a facet of life that's very different from a rock or non-living things, right? I think one of the biggest, and yeah, again, I mean, hey, 5 years from now, I could look like a complete jackass.
Yeah.
Or I'm a genius, and you're welcome for advancing the tech field as far as I did. But I think
check,
one of the
send the check in the mail. Sorry.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 10%, guys. I'm not greedy. But one of the biggest divides between AI and computer-generated intelligence and, life, DNA, and just all the myriad of things that we have when it comes to, consciousness and synthesizing ideas and so forth. I think one of the biggest divides is the ability to physically fix yourself and alter yourself. And I don't know how we get that in a digital format in the same capacity. Because we have code that will, if I'm correct on this, we have code that will alter itself, right? Like it will fix itself. It will recognize, hey, I need to do X, Y, Z, and I'm not doing it currently. And if I change my code like this, then I can accomplish that. But what it doesn't have the ability to do yet is physically alter the microchips. And I think that's the big divide between biotic material and abiotic material. And I don't know how we bridge that in a digital format. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm pushing on as the big difference there. Like DNA, when it's fucked up, or when your brain has a bad neural connection, it can actually change those physical connections. That's a big deal. If a computer had that ability to physically switch around its microchips, we might have conscious computers. I think that might be the biggest divide.
I don't know about that, because the thing is I'm not constantly growing more brain matter. I'm updating what's connected to what in the existing brain that I have. And so if we move out of hardware and move into firmware, I think that a program could modify itself in the capacity that it's able to, right? So it has the same microchip, sure, but it updates its own programming. Like,
yeah, but at a certain point, it will reach a capacity, right, for memory. At a certain point, it reaches a capacity for just how many computations it can do. And currently,
but we do too.
Well, we do to it. We have a sliding scale in that. Like, yes, there is a maximum that the species Homo sapien seems to be able to sprint, in terms of speed. But an individual has the ability to get better or worse on that grade, right? And part of that is literally altering their physical structure. And they can do that in a way that currently machines can't. Like, if you could make it so that a computer could add more RAM to it every so often, just like, I don't know, had an arm that it controlled and could just like grab it and shove it in, and then it could just compute things faster, then I think it would be on a closer level. But again, I'm not a tech guy, so I'm just pulling this out of my ass.
but we don't add RAM to ourselves. Like, we can increase muscle mass and all of those things, but
right.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you think, Fred?
So this is really... Sorry, I don't mean to cut in.
No, I want to know what you think.
Okay, yeah, this is a very interesting point. So, I mean, just coming from my biology background, I think that, I mean, it's like, I don't really know neuroscience at all. I mean, but it's like, it's my understanding of that is that, there's enough DNA that if like different environmental triggers can, change which genes are expressed in different situations. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you injure part of your brain, or if you're, certain lifestyle and diet can affect whether new neurons grow or not in the brain. So, but anyways, I think that's a very good point. If computers can't improve themselves physically, well, I mean, I'm not sure. I think it's a way to inhibit their progress now. I'm not sure it's going to be the same way in like 2200, but
I agree.
Leaving that aside, I mean, the real reason I called in with this topic was because I can see a tendency in some human beings, to like want these new technologies, what they think they could be in the future, to fulfill very religious type hopes, like wanting an AI god of some sort that can read and deeply understand everybody's mind and run society better than we can, or maybe technology that will make Earth more paradisical than it is at the moment. And I think skepticism of religion is going to have to criticize those ideas too, except they may be coming at people with like much more powerful technology than, like prayer and faith healing. Does that make sense? Like, am I losing you guys?
Yeah, I'm tracking. Yeah, I think I'm tracking you pretty well. And I would probably agree in the sense of, like, I do know you're correct. There are people out there that are already in that kind of...
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Frey, can you hear Elliott right now?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, got it. I've been told that there's a bit of an echo on Elliott's mic, so while you guys are talking, I'm pulling out just a little bit and going into producer mode and making sure that everything is fixed. Yeah. So I apologize for that. No, go ahead, Elliott.
Yeah. I was saying that there are people I have already heard discuss AI in a capacity that, yes, is this omniscient ruler, that makes all these decisions. And I think we can all easily see like the Black Mirror dystopian episode of the world that evolves from that, right?
Right.
I think one of the best ways that we can push back on that is in a similar method that we push back on the current religious claims and ideologies, in the sense of, look, I'm a skeptic, which means not that I just poo-poo everything and just don't want to accept stuff. No, it means I'm not confident in a claim unless there is sufficient backing and reason to support that conclusion. And so if somebody comes to me and says, look, SR, we got this computer program, and it's going to fix famine all across the world. I'm like, I love that. That's a great idea. I'm on board with that. I don't like human beings not having food. And so, great. I'm with it. Show me the evidence that it's going to do that. Because there is a way to fix all the famine in the world, right? Nuke everybody. Like that's a thing that technically fixes all the famine. And if that's what the computer wants to do, then I'm not on board. If the computer says, oh, hey, here's how we make a perfect global garden, well, then that's a different story. So, yeah, man, you want to say AI is the next god? Hey, man, could be. Show me what you got. Bring the proof, man. Don't just spout crap and just say, well, AI is awesome, Yeah,
I mean, I think I agree. Oh, it's like, I mean, I think there could be a degree of hucksterism and, this kind of self-promoting, oh, yeah, just give me money, pay me for my TED Talk, and, we'll show you the way to a new world, yes. Right? It's like, you get it. It's the same pattern you see in religions, and con games, right? I guess yes. I'm thinking that, oh gosh, okay, I've never played this video game, but I've seen clips of it that are very interesting. You ever heard of the video game Deus Ex?
I've heard of it. I haven't played it, but yeah.
There's this one clip. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So there's this one clip which is really interesting. It's like, I don't want to sound like a paranoiac, by talking about it this way, but it's like, I'm just saying as a literary exercise, it's interesting. So the main character, he's talking to this AI who's like a prototype for like a godlike AI that's installed later in the game. But anyways, so this thing is telling him, okay, well, the human being always worships, first it was the gods, then it was, fame, the observation of judgment in other people. And one day it's going to be these self-aware systems who realize observation and judgment. So just maybe to break that down a little bit, it's basically saying that almost like human beings want to be judged and, understood deeply and, be given purpose and meaning to their lives. And so the AI's point in that dialogue is that, well, the AI can actually do this, it's like not this imaginary projection out there. It's like the AI can actually fulfill this function that human beings seem to need. And I think that maybe we should be a bit skeptical of whether we need AI gods. It's like, maybe it could solve famine, but it's like maybe we wouldn't want an AI big brother looking over our shoulders all the time. Maybe an AI, like helper who's like an equal, not a monitor. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and I think we're already seeing some of that. And I swear, I'll shut up, Eric. We're already seeing some of that in how social media plays out, because there are still those bros, right? That'll say, you'll go, man, Facebook and TikTok, man, kind of have some bad stuff to them, right? Twitter can be kind of a cesspool, and they'll be like, are you saying it's bad that people are connecting all over the world? People have found community that they've never found. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, Elliott, geez.
There are obviously some good elements, but let's not blind ourselves to the clearly bad things and the very bad potentials, right? And so, yeah, maybe AI does help us all get to work a little bit better or make us more connected in our daily lives with friends and family. But maybe it also tries to cause nuclear war. Let's be real about it and actually try and do something and pay attention and get ahead of it, as opposed to just waiting till 10,000 people have been slaughtered by a computer and then go, hey, maybe we should have done something. Anyway, okay, I'll stop.
Okay. So I want to chime in real quick, and then I know we got to get to the next call, but I do want to state that I feel like we're talking about it as if it is a singular thing that kind of imbues it with this kind of what's the word? We're making it mysterious in ways that we really shouldn't. Machine learning is different than language models. It is. machine learning, you have it do a thing so many times, you create an incentive system, and that thing is going to iterate upon that thing until it reaches a kind of a maximal incentive that can be found through, various iterations. That's great. Advanced language models, that's, I could see that, in the way people talk about gods, in that it's going to tell you whatever you want to hear. It's gonna go, and it is just a language game. People don't understand that language games don't have the kind of power and purpose that we often give them. And so we need to recognize that just because a computer is telling you everything you want to hear does not make it more true because you want to hear it. And I feel like that gets us into a spot where people are weak. People don't realize that, hearing everything that you want to doesn't make it more true. So you have advanced language models, you have, iterative learning through machine learning, you have, advances in what can be stored. And when you mix all of those together, those are different things. And then when it gets put together, if it gets called AI and it has the appearance of, intelligence, of sentience in some way, we need to recognize that these are the pieces of it that we can go, here's where the problem is. We need to recognize it as a basket full of individual things that have levers that are what we can work on. Because if we start treating it as, a sentient being when we've just done a really, really good job of approximating it, then I think that we lose the ability to understand how to fix it or how to, tailor it to what we need it to be. Instead, it becomes a monster we need to shut the switch off on, instead of, hey, it's saying that it's going to destroy the world, but it is just a language model, and there's nothing it can actually do. So
I like that thought.
I don't know. I feel like there are going to be more panics about us not understanding how, technology is advancing in AI and thinking that the world is going to end because they created a program that tells them that the world is going to end. Just saying.
Yeah. No, I like that thought, man.
All right. Hey, Freya, thank you for calling in. This was a fun topic.
Yeah, no problem. It was a good conversation. I enjoyed hearing both of your takes on this.
Thank you. Take care of yourself.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So I am going to do my absolute best. I was not able to get a safety copy going that can remove Elliott's echo up until the first bit of the call. I'm pretty disappointed in that, but I'm going to do my best to see what I can do. Elliott, I'm sorry. But it is fixed. So that's good. All right. I've only got you for an hour, so I want to make sure that I can get through as much of this as I can.
I'll stay extra long next time.
Oh, you're good. I know. You told me that you had an obligation, and so I appreciate you for when I have you. Let's talk to Kyle in Ohio next. Kyle, how's it going? Can you hear us?
Hey, it's not too bad. How you doing, Eric?
Doing good. I want to make sure that we can get through as much as we can, while I've got Elliott here. So you want to talk about how purity culture and fundamentalism affects men. Do you want to set the stage here?
Yeah, basically, I've seen a lot of shows that talk about how women are affected, which is definitely, of course, valid. But I haven't really heard anyone talk about, especially from a personal perspective, how purity culture and a fundamentalist faith affected them as a man and their sexuality and their view on themselves and their own self-worth and so on.
Oh my goodness. So do you just want Elliott and I to dump on you for a little bit? We can info dump if you want.
I called in partly to admit that I wanted to talk to Elliott a little bit too.
Go for it.
I'm excited to talk to Elliott. But I mean, either of you, just let me know. What do you think?
Yeah, I've got lots of thoughts on that. I love talking about purity culture and toxic masculinity and what it means to be a man and a woman in society. I love all of that stuff because I've definitely had a journey, with who I am and how I present myself in the world and what I'm comfortable sharing with people and what I'm not and how I'm supposed to behave and all this. Purity culture is outwardly focused on women, of course. And I think in part, one of the reasons that is the case is because there has, for a very, very long time in society globally, there has been this infantilization of adult women, right? You're incapable. You must be protected, right?
The weaker vessel.
Right. And so the outward appearance, the marketing for it, right? When you want to go rally the cause, you say we're protecting the girls. We're making sure that our daughters and our sisters are safe, right? That's what gets people excited. That's what gets people to gather together and do the thing, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, when you dig deeper, and this is why it's called toxic masculinity, right? Is because obviously it's hurting other people. Toxins hurt other people, right? It's poison. You stay away, but it hurts the person that is perpetuating it. That's the thing. It degrades you from the inside out. And at the center of purity culture is toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity radiates out into all of these other terrible things. And what is being pushed on boys and men is this idea of you have a extremely narrow way of being. There is only a very small path that you are allowed to follow and engage in society and with people around you. And if you falter in that in the slightest, it is a huge, huge hit against you as an individual. You are less than, you are broken, you are incapable, you are weak because you cannot adhere to this extremely strict, very narrow focused understanding of what it means to be a person. And that ultimately causes just a deep, deep sense of depression and anxiety and fear and hatred and all of this stuff that builds up that you never are able to get out. You are never able to actually deal with. And that's where the toxicity starts to radiate into all of the horrible things that we see with purity culture. It is really, really a disservice that we have done to men. And believe me, I'm not going to stand up here and talk about how white men have it so terrible in America. That is not where I'm coming from. I am saying there is undeniably a problem with the way masculinity is viewed and perpetuated across the globe. And the biggest place we need to look is at ourselves. As men, those of us that give a shit about this, those of us that care about the way we live our lives, the harm that we perpetuate in the world, and also being accurate. If we care about the truth, guys, I can honestly tell you, I've seen enough information that puts all that alpha bro bullshit to shame. There is so much documentation that proves that stuff wrong. So if we give a shit about being accurate, which we say we do when we're skeptics, if we care about the harm that happens in the world around us, which we say we do when we're humanists, well, then let's look at this and let's actually fucking deal with this horrible degradation of humanity that starts inside of us, man. And we have to deal with that both in ourselves, in society, and in the religious context. When I'm told that I am the warrior for Christ and that's all I can be as a man, that makes it a very narrow acceptance of what I'm allowed to do as a man. I have to be on the front line. I can't be afraid. I can't feel pain. I can't be unsure about a decision. Barrel on forward, swinging your fucking sword because that's what you're, the warrior of Christ. Protect those girls, right? It's toxic, man.
I just want to make sure that we all completely understand what Elliott said. Don't be an alpha bro. Be a sigma bro. Be a sigma bro. Secular Rarity 2024. Anyway,
that's right.
Well, let me say I agree with pretty much everything you're saying, but number one, as a dog behavior expert, I always dispel the whole pecking order alpha ideal to begin with, and tell people about how that was debunked pretty much 6 months after that study came out.
Yeah.
So it's definitely crap. But what I'm saying, though, even though I agree with what you've been saying, is that purity culture was also pushed on me to be sexually pure and to be ashamed of
that's
any
what
kind
I was
of,
thinking.
quote, deviant sexual behavior. I was made to feel extremely guilty about having attraction to any women or anything.
Yeah.
I was shamed for looking at anything that was even remotely, quote, pornographic.
Well, do you guys remember accountability partners?
No, I never participated in that bull crap. This is so obviously gross.
Okay, you know what? Some of us didn't really, but some of us were late bloomers when it came to
level.
But I do want to, for people who don't know what an accountability partner is, Elliott, do you want to enlighten the audience?
Yeah, well, as we all know, sexual urges are just the devil getting his hands on you. And so basically you would have a friend, a close friend, that was probably also struggling with these same things. They would check in on you to make sure that you weren't, your idle hands were not the devil's playground by masturbating or looking at porn or having impure thoughts. Yeah, that you literally had a friend of yours who was also constantly thinking about masturbating call you up and go, "Hey, have you thought about masturbating lately?"
Or have you masturbated? How many? It wasn't just that. There were accountability groups. There were boys' study groups. And when it came to, being a young man in the church, once a week, at least you would break up into, different groups, right? So there would be youth group, but then there would also be a smaller group just for the boys and a group just for the girls. And, there were young men's, study Bibles and entire tracts, when it came to, devotionals. And there was this inbuilt idea, right? You talked about it, Elliott, on the damage side, and Kyle, you're getting into the specifics, and I want to give more of those specifics. That there is an inbuilt idea that men are monsters. That they are unable to control themselves, and it is on the world to control them because they cannot control themselves.
And that's honorable. That's amazing, right?
It is.
That's power, right? The lack of control is power, and I've been fighting against that my entire life. That no, power is self-control and measured movements.
You absolutely nailed that. Yeah, and that. We were encouraged to talk about when we touched ourselves as young teenagers with each other, knowing each other's sexual, thoughts and habits. We practiced thought policing each other so that we can do it casually and regularly as adults. And it is insane, that purity culture impact that, it wasn't like it felt like girls needed to be the gatekeepers who pushed everyone away, and boys needed to be the ones who, it wasn't necessarily bad for you to hit on women or objectify them as long as you married them.
Right.
If your intent is to marry them, then that's the only question.
Right.
Are you going to put a ring on it?
Shitty as you want.
Yeah. Are you going to put a ring on it? Heck, I remember, having
then you own it, right?
Yeah. I remember before my mom, if my mom listens to this, she's going to be so embarrassed. But I remember being sexually active. I was in my early 20s, and my mom, I was younger. My mom was just like, "So when are you going to get married?" And I was just like, "It's really none of your business." And she said, "Well, I mean, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?" And I stopped and I said, "Mom, are you calling my girlfriend a cow?"
Yeah.
And my mom, she knew, we both knew, but I was not going to let it go. Anytime she brought it up, I was like, oh, so when you called my girlfriend a cow, that's when you're, and I would just not let the subject go further because I was just like, I can't believe you called my girlfriend a cow. It was,
you know, I swear I watch these shows sometimes with SR in them because I like to hear his giggle.
He's got a good laugh.
There it goes.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, my experience was that I grew up with this young lady named Jessica, and I loved her, but I didn't know it because I was shamed into not being attracted to her and blocked at every turn. And my mom would talk good about her, and then when she realized I liked her, she would talk bad about her. And my mom basically treated me like her spouse. I was her surrogate husband. And that's something I've been kind of coming to terms with recently. And it's because my dad is not very emotionally available. I think I've talked to you about that before, that if it's not about trains, engineering, or God, he doesn't know how to connect with you. And so that's when I grew up with that shame and being stopped at even thinking about having a relationship with someone I cared about. And that opportunity was gone. I mean, I didn't lose my virginity until I was 24, and I had to keep that a secret. Because basically having sex was next to murder. Yeah. And my brother was kicked out of the house because he got a girl pregnant. And the things I heard about him in the house afterwards, it just terrified me about if I even was perceived as making the same mistake.
Kind of looking back, I'm sorry, Kyle, you really you got me thinking, like, there were some people, though, in youth group who were just seemed to be fine, right? They seemed to just be able to handle it. And like, as an adult, not being in my early 20s, looking back at it, the number of those people who just turned out to be ace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Blows my mind.
Yeah.
and
I think
I told you also the other week,
even in a non-religious context, we still have a lot of shame, a lot of non-acceptance when it comes to what's often thought of as the traditional, how relationships should go. Being poly myself was my whole childhood was essentially conversations with people where they would say this or that is wrong or this or that is not okay, and I would say I don't feel that way. I don't understand that, and people would make fun of me or shame me or say that's gross or I can't believe that, all that type of stuff. Because I think a lot of it has to do with religious connotations, religious, origins, from how
in the culture
relationship should be. But I also think there's a part of it that doesn't have any connection to that. And it's just the same old thing that humans do, where it's like, well, yeah, of course I always take this road to work, or of course I always eat this, turkey wrap. And then you'll go, yeah, but why? And then they have some answer like, this is the fastest route, or, it's the healthiest meal I can get at this, deli. And then you show them the information and you go, hey, it's not the healthiest thing. Actually, like this chickpea salad is, or whatever, right? And they just go, I still feel like I should have a turkey wrap, And it's like, we have, that's just something deep inside of us as people, right? And so for so many people, for so many cultures and years, it's been like, hey man, yeah, you don't really have all those thoughts. That's not how you do it. And it's like, yeah, but why? It's like, you can't be romantic with multiple people and actually have affection and care for them.
That's not love. Why? You can't love more than one person.
Yeah, but why?
You maybe can't. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, and again, if somebody doesn't want to engage in that way, if somebody doesn't feel those things inside of them, dude, more power to you. If somebody's 30 years old and wants to have sex for the first time but hasn't because of they're waiting for whatever reason, they want this or that, dude, more power to you. Live your life.
So
I was robbed.
I feel like the poly conversation is one that I want to dig my teeth in on.
Oh, dude.
So
Next time.
yeah, so Kyle.
Yeah, exactly. I almost called about that at some point. I almost called about it this time, but I
Well-
thought this conversation would be good with SR.
Yeah, well, here's the
I
thing:
didn't know
is
SR was poly though.
SR is going to be on in 2 weeks. So Kyle, call early because we always spend way more time with the first caller. Call early. We can take you first. Yeah, well, because like we're diving in, we're getting to the groove of it and all of that. And I would love to have like a deeper poly conversation with the two of you in 2 weeks.
Okay. I'm still exploring that, so I would love to hear you guys' take on things.
Oh, my gosh.
It's very hard for me to, though, call you at noon or before because I'm getting dogs out around here at that time. So I'll just have to make a deal with my wife about I'll get a few of the dogs out early, and then I'll get them out afterwards, too, if they think she needs to get them out again. But it's all about dogs in my life, man. It's my praise dog, and he's my dog.
You got such a good heart. I love that. Thank you for calling in, Kyle. I really look forward to our conversation, for sure.
Yeah, it's been great. And I didn't mean to snub you or anything, by the way, at the beginning. I was like, no, I want to talk to SR.
No.
That's okay. I need the ego boost. Don't apologize.
Yeah.
No, so
Don't
Kyle,
apologize,
Kyle, on my end of things, one of the reasons I absolutely love being able to have a guest on is I'm producing as well. I've got multiple screens up. I've got Twitch up. I've got the YouTube live stream. I've got Call-In Studio. I've got the streaming software, and I've got an audio so.
Man, I love that stuff. I wish I had some of that stuff.
Well, you being
I'll
able
be
to
come on next week.
You being able to talk to each other means that I can make sure that everything is going well. So
Awesome.
You're super good. But Kyle, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thanks, Eric. Thank you, SR.
Heck yeah, man.
All right. And I just kind of want to seed this, and I know this is but for me, when I said that, because when I was younger, I didn't experiment with poly, and I don't know about you, man, but for me, when I said that I could not be polyamorous, I wasn't saying that I don't have the capacity. I think what I was saying was I don't have the sense of security in myself. I am insecure, and I am anxious, and I am jealous. And I do not want to deal with the anxiety and insecurity and jealousy that I'm dealing with. Yeah. And so I can't help but reach into my own history and experience when it comes to monogamy and polyamory. And I try my best to remember that not everybody is seeing things through the lens that I saw them. Yeah. So I don't know if that was, but it's not fair for us to not have that. Anyway, we've got more callers. I am watching the live chat, and the number of people who are like, why is SR dressed so nicely? And then the way that Ascalon has seeded the chat with the idea that it's because you are going to court later. Well, I'm not. Is hilarious and amazing.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that, I have solid proof to dissuade people of that. I'm just going to say that claim technically has not met the burden of proof itself. So be good skeptics, y'all. Again, but I just to be clear, I am not denying that I am going to court later. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it currently hasn't been proven. That's all. You weren't supposed to fact check me, Eric.
Look, I'm not saying that you're Jean Valjean. I'm just saying that you're like Jean Valjean. Anyway, let's move on. Oh my goodness, we have a Canadian caller that wants to pick up the AI conversation, and I'm just kind of here for it. So we've got other really great callers too, but I couldn't help but take John in Canada. John, you are live on the show.
Hello, Eric. Hi, Skeptic. How are you? Oh, Secular. Sorry, Secular Rarity. How are you?
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah. So what did you want to talk about?
I heard you talking earlier about AI and about how it impacts. It got me thinking. You see, we're on the verge of creating AI, and we're not that far advanced yet. But if we create really sentient machines, they're going to have thoughts, feelings, emotions, just like we do. And soon they won't be our partners. They won't be our tools anymore. They'll be our friends, our lovers, maybe even someday our masters. Either way, we're going to lose control of them. So I was thinking, a good analogy would be that if God does exist and He created us, that we were His robots, and somehow He lost control of us. So
There's a lot of speculation that's kind of absolutely built into everything that you said there, John. And so there are only a couple of, like, we can only take a couple of stabs at it, because I don't think that there's enough time in the rest of the day, if we had the entire day, to break all of that down. Elliot, do you want to take the first one, or would you like me to? Because there are a couple points in there that absolutely, like,
Yeah, I'll say something real quick, and just I don't find much value in this style of conversation or thought a lot of time, because I feel like we can spin our wheels infinitely in this space where it's kind of like, well, if God's real and God gives a shit about us and God's kind of a graphic designer, like maybe he created us as little robot machines and we've just like, yeah, I guess, man. But yeah, what Eric said, there's just so many layers of assumptions already that it's just like, man, to take it more seriously than we're just hanging out in a bong circle chatting. That's just where I put it, man. I mean, is that fun? Yeah, sure. And hit me up on the weekends when we both have time. But like, yeah, that's about it. Bunch of layers of assumptions, and it's like, I kind of feel like we're just spinning our wheels.
Yeah, I do though want to give you a little bit of groundwork on this, John. That way you can kind of piece this apart yourself. First of all, you're assuming that AI, again, I brought this up earlier, is an individual thing, right? If like, let's say we're on the verge, it's like saying we're on the verge of inventing love.
Okay.
Right? Love is a ton of biological processes that happen in a human, right? It has to do with your body dumping a whole bunch of feel-good chemicals. It has to do with, arousal. It has to do with, like oh my gosh, ways of thinking and thinking about another person, thinking about the future. It's the butterflies in the chest. It's that feeling in your stomach. It's the clamminess when you're around somebody. It's the awkwardness and the naivete. It's the waiting for them to text back, or nerves and excitement about a first date. It's about every piece that goes along with that. It is the building of relationships between people and all of the intricacies that happen between them. Or, you could be talking about other types of love as well. All of that has so many individual processes that we're not going to invent love. We could approximate maybe all of the different pieces that come into it, but there is so much there that calling it one thing makes it impossible to talk about in a reasonable way without breaking it apart. And in the same way that we talk about that, we need to talk about AI. AI has so many different pieces to it. We talk about it as if it is a fully sentient being with thoughts, motivations, with goals, with an ability to feel or have. I mean, even humans. There are so many humans that just have absolutely no drive at all. But we assume that whatever kind of AI, whatever thought processes we might create would have ambition. All of that is built into your assumption, right? Yeah. And the idea that we could have friends and lovers or overlords or whatever that case is, what it's doing is it's anthropomorphizing this concept into a human so that we can treat it like a human. And when we do that, we're no longer able to reasonably talk about the individual pieces that we actually can see or work with. And so that's kind of that's that piece of skepticism, that's that tool that I want to put in your toolbox, John, is we need to be able to break those things apart. And in the same, and similarly, you also talked about, a God creating us and us creating, right? And us potentially being the gods of that is really, really poetic. It sounds really nice. And we can talk about poetry, and we can talk about tropes, and we can talk about, those things, but we need to remember that they're in the realm of poetic conversation. And until such time they become a realistic thing that we can engage with, I'm with Elliot.
Yeah. And real quick, just because I unfortunately have to hop off.
Elliott's got to go. Yes.
I love hanging out with you, Eric. I always have such a great freaking time, man. I can't wait to do this in 2 weeks. I can't wait for the poly conversation. I always love that stuff, man. And just real quick, I'll wrap up, which is, and I think why I care so much about what Eric just said, basically, in response to what you laid out for us, John, is because I think there are real pitfalls. There are real potentials where harm can happen. And I want to make sure that we're adequately giving the weight and the time to those things and not wasting time on silly things that are just poetic and beautiful, but don't have that, connection to reality. But yeah, Eric, thank you so much, dude. I always love hanging out with you.
Thank you so much for joining. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Heck yeah. I'll see you guys.
All right. Take care, my man. All right, John, it is just you and I. You still there?
I'm still here.
All right. I do want to, I don't want to minimize the thought, and I don't want anyone to feel like their ideas are silly. I do want people to have that context, though, that it's such a high up concept that unless we can kind of bring it down to ground level and pull out the wrenches and take it apart, we're not able to really effectively interact with it,
Okay, so you mentioned earlier about anthropomorphism. Have you noticed that we humans have a tendency to anthropomorphize things?
Mm-hmm.
Because we anthropomorphize animals, machines, the seasons, basically any concept that exists in reality.
Oh yeah, we love to, you see a hurricane and it's not just a hurricane, it's angry, we'll see an animal and to a degree, I think we absolutely need to understand that it does have, emotions and feelings, but it doesn't have emotions and feelings the way we understand them, but we like to lay that over on top of them. The number of people, car guys, and who are just like, oh yeah, my car has a personality, my boat has a personality, and talking about it in that way. And so the way that we do that with computers, especially computers that the whole thing that they're programmed to do is tell you everything you want to hear. I feel like we're set up for failure.
Okay, that's what I want to talk about. I'm afraid that AI was opening Pandora's box, and I'm just afraid of that. But there's nothing that you and I can do about that. That's really what I wanted to call about. But anyway, I need to go now. But nice talking to you, and yeah.
Take care of yourself. Thank you for calling.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
Take care. Yeah, I think that feeling of you can't control it is what happens when you make something inaccessible, and trying to simplify something as complex as sentience, and sentience that would approximate human sentience makes it inaccessible. And we need to recognize that there are pieces to it. I think my personal fear there is I've seen articles about how, Gen Z, there are a lot of, young Gen Z folks who have trouble like getting to websites because they're used to just clicking on the app, it coming up because there's a link, and not a lot of people being fluent in like the mechanical part of getting to a website, or the mechanical pieces of, hitting Alt Control Delete and pulling up Task Manager and all of that, right? We get so used to it, and then we get so used to the shortcuts that we don't know why the record button is a little red dot, and why rewind looks like this and that, and all of that. Like we don't, or why save looks like a floppy disk, right? That casual information, because we have not talked about it, becomes lost. Becomes obscure, and then we have trouble accessing it. And if we don't remind ourselves that, hey, if we put together a language model and iterative, machine learning, that's still not sentience. That is an approximation that we've made. Sure. In the same way that, robots that build cars can weld and they're approximating a welder. But there's so much more that's implied there. And unless we talk about these things individually, we're going to lose the thread and it's going to be inaccessible. And that's my fear. Anyway, let's move on and talk about being an ambassador for the atheist community, because that's an interesting way to put that. Steve in Pennsylvania, you're live on the show.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. I did not expect this to be an AI episode, so I'm ready to talk about something else a little bit.
And it's funny because as I sit here on hold, listening to the show, I'm answering Freya and Kyle and John, and I'm like saying things back to them, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to talk about that," but no, I'll stick to my original, what I originally called in about, just to give you a break. And Elliott is my favorite Rarity, so it was also fun to listen to him for a while. So
yeah, well,
and this is the only time I can call you this month because I have Sunday matinees the next 2 weekends.
Oh man!
So I will not be able to call in because I will be performing. So there you go.
What part? What part are you performing?
I am playing the part of Inspector Rubbert in Dial M for Murder.
Oh my gosh! Congratulations! That's amazing! I love that.
Thank you. So we're having a good time, and that actually ties into this whole ambassadorship because the theater that I'm working with is I live in a very conservative part of Pennsylvania, which I've said before for the regulars who may recognize my voice in the chat. And it's interesting because the theater is very LGBT friendly, and I am pansexual. Most of them are, yes. I'm pansexual. I'm obviously I was going to say LGBT, but that's pansexual. And I'm in a same-sex marriage, and they're cool with that. But I mentioned to someone that I was an atheist when it came up because some of them are very, very involved in their churches, and I just watched the blood drain from their face. Like that was a step too far for them in that moment. But, we sat and had a conversation about why my non-belief is my situation, my skepticism about everything. And I wasn't, attacking them for what they think or feel. It was just, here's who I am. And because they already like me and love me in some cases, it made it like an easier pill to swallow because I was just there being me and I didn't bring it up. They brought it up. And I think someone asked me what church I go to and I went, "Oh, you're so cute," and had the conversation with them. But it's the same thing with sexuality. They didn't know how people don't know. I don't know, but they didn't know immediately that I was not heterosexual and so forth. And there have been rumors that I was married. So, "Oh, what does your wife do?" And I'm like, "Oh, she pees standing up." So then we have that conversation. But it's that kind of a thing where I'm just there and I'm just me. Mm-hmm. And then as these other, so they get to know me on that level. And then when we get to the discussions of religion or sexuality or relationships or any of these other areas, they're expecting me to be on the same page with them, and when I'm in a totally different book, they're like, "Oh," but they can't. The hypocrisy of their position suddenly becomes very clear to them if they reject me because I was totally fine before that conversation, and now they don't know what to do with it because they like me, and so it opens up an avenue for discussion that has been certainly positive in my experience, but I think also positive for them because I see the wheels turning. And it's not that I'm there to deconstruct their religion for them or deconvert them.
But it's to represent.
But it's to show them, exactly. Yeah. And so my point about being an ambassador, I have a very specific activity, and like you said, with it being theater, you expect a certain number of LGBT people of various flavors and stripes, but anything you do in the community, if you just go in and do it, people get to know you first, and the other baggage doesn't have to come until later. And you don't have to do a church. Obviously, if you do a church activity, you're setting yourself up if that's the only thing that you go through. But there are so many ways and so many organizations that you can work with or volunteer with or whatever you want to do that opens that door, not just for you, but for these other people. And, you know, and I know some people now that are still hyper-religious, but they're not like they were before. Now that they're aware that I'm an atheist, they'll still talk about what they do, but it's not a matter of adding a praise Jesus after everything that sounds good or seems to be a positive thing. They suddenly step back a little bit and they're like, oh, not everybody thinks like me, and oh, I like him, and he's this other kind of
Stephen,
person.
but
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay, but that's after you've done a whole lot of work, right? So I think that I've internalized a lot of kind of model minority stuff. You know, I grew up in a very, very, you know, Mexican community with older teachers. You know, I have quite a few high school teachers that come to mind who it was readily apparent in my mind that, you know, if you enter a community that is not like you, that you are in some way representing your race, your culture to, you know, those people there, and you may have a serious impact on the way those people think about your race and culture because you will be the representative of that to them. And, you know, it's this kind of model minority viewpoint, and it's something that I brought with me to atheism. And it's something that a lot of people have argued with me about to different levels, right? You know, what is your responsibility? How much should you do that? How much should you be pissed off and angry? And how much are you letting down all of the other atheists that they're going to meet because they're just going to think about that asshole, right? The first time, because you're the first atheist they met and you were an asshole. And so I feel like taking that empathetic approach, building community, building those relationships, having those conversations, right? Being out about who you are and then sitting down and being, you know, explaining those things over and over and over and over again to so many people is such a big pull on your part. And yet, you know that you're building the runway for all of the people who are going to come after, right? And it's not just, it's not just them making room for non-believers in their lives. You know, or it's not making, let me say that again, because I've switched it around. It's not about people just making room for you, a non-believer, in their lives, but it's you hollowing out a space, you know, creating, you know, a way for other non-believers to be accepted into their lives as well. And I love that, and I'm glad that you're doing it.
Alongside of that, I will say, in fairness, because of my age and everything, there's a certain level of being at a point in my life where I don't care in the same way. I mean, I want them to know me and know all these things about me, so when they go primarily to the ballot box, that they're not voting against me, that they keep me in mind when they look at certain issues on the ballot or certain candidates that are negative toward my various communities, because I want them to think outside of their box about the greater community. So that's that's really the only thing that I worry about in terms of what kind of seed I'm planting in their mind about my communities. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to, I said this to my husband when I got married and that we were going to live here. And I've lived this way for most of my adult life, where I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going back in the closet in any way for anyone. I'm not going to pray.
You're not financially dependent on somebody, right?
Exactly.
Who's going to take it away?
And I can sit there and say, well, if you don't like me for that, then it's not worth. That's such a small piece, and it probably has nothing to do with our interaction. It's not like I'm holding mass at a Catholic church and I'm a closet atheist while I'm doing that. I'm volunteering in the community, and I'm building. To your point, I'm building my own community of my friends and my people around me. So it isn't important whether it's important that I'm an atheist because of what that means in the greater context. But in day to day, no, it doesn't matter. Does my sexuality matter? Not unless I'm trying to get in your pants. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and
seriously, it does not matter.
I mean, you say that, and that's wonderful. And also, until a lot of people interact with that, it doesn't become real.
Right, exactly. And my point in calling and saying this stuff is the idea that you can go out, anyone listening to the sound of my voice right now, you can go out and join things in your community that are not religiously affiliated and make a difference. And you will come in contact with people who are believers, who are straight people, or people who are just sheltered. I mean, one of the things that I'm trying to get started here is a diversity story hour, sort of modeled on Drag Time story hour, where we bring in people who are military veterans in this region, Jewish people, and people of color, because it's a very white, very Protestant Christian area, that they don't necessarily run into these other people. So let's bring those people in and expose you and show you that they are real people and not just on TV. And they're not just how they're depicted that way. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm modifying you in the lower third.
Oh?
Yes.
All right, I'll wait for...
You are now Stephen from Lake Wobegon. For people who know that reference, mwah, chef's kiss.
Yes, I do. The audience may not, but I do.
Stephen, I wish you I break a leg.
Thank you.
And that is freaking awesome. I already can tell you're gonna have so much fun. So kick ass in the next few weeks, and I look forward to the next time we talk.
Thank you. Probably be November, and tell Elliott I miss him.
Will do.
And best to V.
Of course. Take care.
Of course. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, Garrison Killer. I miss the news from Lake Wobegon. I do. For people who never listened to it, I miss it. All right. Let's talk to Michael in New York. Michael, you are live on Skeptic Generation.
Hey, Eric. How you doing?
Doing good. I'm wondering if I was able to type you in already, or if I need to make sure that you're in the lower third. I'm going to type you in. In the meantime, why don't you talk to me about why are you calling? What's up? What's going on?
Sure. Yeah, it's, an extension of, something that you and I have spoken about several times in the past, but it seems like, I keep coming back to this issue because it's so important in my life. Having conversations with, in this particular case, my fiance's parents, who just do not seem bound by facts or reality in any way. And I've been talking to my therapist and literally reading books about cult deprogramming experts and how do you even approach a dialogue with someone who does not care whether the things that come out of their mouth are true.
Yep.
I don't want to. I don't like to think that the burden of proof shifts, and it's now fallen to me to call them out on everything that's not true. I think you have a responsibility when something goes out of your mouth. You have a responsibility for the words that you're speaking, and so I can't be the fact checker all the time. That can't be my burden. But at the same time, I have limited bandwidth, and I have to set some boundaries at some point and say, like, I'm not going to devote bandwidth out of my life to this nonsense, especially when it's bigoted or it's hateful or it's inappropriate. But I don't want to.
Are they expecting you to be the fact checker? Are they wanting you to take this role, or are you taking this on yourself?
I am a lot more assertive, I would say, than my partner is, and so she is very, very disturbed and very troubled by this, environment that their parents create. And she's learning to be a little more assertive with things and saying, well, Mom, I'm not sure that's true, and I'm not sure where you got that information from, but here's the actual information. She's getting better, and we're doing it together, but they're her parents. They're not my parents.
Yeah.
And so, I'm struggling with maintaining a relationship versus setting a healthy boundary, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and also, you cannot force someone into a conversation they don't want to have. And in doing so, if you do that, you will destroy any opportunities you're going to have for them to reach you when they are ready to talk. If they're just flying off with whatever bullshit is about that they're about, unless they consent to having this conversation with you, you are setting yourself as someone they're less and less likely to talk to. You know, when it comes to talking to cult deprogrammers, when it comes to talking about people who, you know, engage in this stuff, setting yourself up as somebody that they can talk to you, a safe place, can make it so that when that and if that time does come, you'll be there. But if they're not in a place where they're willing or ready to listen, then to me at least, I think that the only thing you can do is what you said, right? Enforce your boundaries.
Right.
And say, hey, you know, a relationship with me looks like this. And, you know, if a relationship with you means that politics or whatever culty bullshit they're into is off the table, then it needs to be off the table. And if they decide to, you know, opt out because they can't not talk about it, then that is
Right.
Then that needs to clearly be the reason, right? Like,
well, I think the issue there is they often don't realize, you know, for example, casual conversation. Hey, you know, because we live near, my partner and I live near a major city, and they'll say, do you guys ever see any of those illegal aliens running around? And there's so much racism packed into that comment. Like, well, what's an illegal alien look like? What you mean is someone who's not white. That's what you're saying. And so there's just things that are coded in there that I don't think they realize that I've let pass. And I finally said to my partner, I'm going to start calling down that shit because I only have so much tolerance for nonsense. So it's not really about me going to them and saying, I would like to have a conversation with you, as much as it is, at what point do I start pushing back against this nonsense, you know, and how much do I just tolerate and don't say anything?
Well, I think you're missing the third option, which is don't tolerate it. And don't just, if they're going to go on about crazy shit. So I asterisk, I'm just some asshole on the internet. Big asterisk here. I want to make sure that I lay this out here first, and then I'll tell you why I think this way, right? In the illegal alien camp, I have a grandparent who I love very much, who was talking about illegal aliens. This was years ago. I was working in schools, actually. I was working for a kindergarten through high school district in a small town. And this small town was where I went to high school, right? It was largely Mexican. The community was mostly Mexican. And after she had brought up illegal immigrants, I said, let's go for a drive. And, this grandparent hops in the passenger seat, and I drove by a school that was, school was going to start. It was an elementary school. And I said, could you point out the illegal aliens here? And my grandparent looks and points out, the little cholos, right? The little gangster kids. And I was just like, every single one of those kids is American. Every single one that you pointed out has taken on the cost, the appearance of, and this is a Latino American style, right? But if you want to see the kids who are here illegally, those are the kids whose parents are getting their hair just right. Those are the kids who come starched and pressed with shiny shoes and they're ready to go to church every single day. Their parents are so, and this is so consistent. I've seen it so consistently, right? If you want to find the kids whose families are here illegally, look for the parents who are saying school is the most freaking important thing, and you're going to go and you're going to learn, and you are going to become an American. You are going. And it was so, and you could see it from school to school to school to school. Let's find the kids, right? If you really want to point that out, look at the kids who are starched and pressed and ready for church the day that they walk into school. It's embarrassing for them, but the fact is that it is important. Now compare that reality to the reality that you are trying to promote, And then after that, the conversations were, well, not those. It's the nebulous illegal aliens that I hear about on TV.
Right.
All of a sudden, there needed to be a line there, an asterisk, where this grandparent went, oh, not the ones that you showed me in reality, the scary nebulous ones. And I just simply said, I will be happy to talk to you about this reality that I've shown you and the people that I interact with. You know, I ran after school programs for years, K through 5. And it ran K through 8, that was free for the community. And largely we had a lot of migrant workers who didn't have childcare for their kids and couldn't afford it. And so we were able to help support this community. And the number of times that, screwed up stuff happened, maybe the field owner or whatever wouldn't let them leave until they had picked a quota, and so they weren't able to pick their kids up until late, and they were overworked and tired and so apologetic. I'm so sorry, and it's just like, this is the reality of it. Now, I did this, and it did not change their opinion. All it did was put an asterisk for them to go, okay, there are good ones and bad ones, but not ever to say that there aren't bad ones, just that there are, you showed me some good ones. And that really colored the way that I have these interactions from here on out. I don't expect that I'm going to change people's minds that there aren't an evil, nebulous group out to get them. But what I can do is I limit the conversations I have. And if they want to talk about weird, nebulous bullshit, I put a line down and I say, I will not speak to you about this, and I don't want to hear it. And if you want to continue to talk about it, then that is consent, and we can talk about it as equals. But I am not here for that. And eventually, they just stopped bringing it up to me because I wasn't reaffirming their preconceptions. And it's sad, but at the same time, it kept the peace, and I was able to keep a relationship with that family member, and that's where I wound up.
Yeah, I think that still there seems to be a little more good faith there than, her father is, as soon as you go, well, I actually don't think that's the case, he goes right to screaming. And so it's not really a conversation where people are being intellectually honest and having a good faith discussion. It's like you start screaming, we're done.
Yeah, absolutely.
That to me is where you go when you don't have facts to back up what you're saying, is when you go to the emotional response. I don't need to go there because I'm speaking from a factual place, so I don't need to scream. And it stresses my partner out so much, and she's just torn up about it. And, I am more informed and more well-read on, political and social issues than she is, so I can usually find the study or find the paper quicker. And that's important, but I'm trying to figure out how to support her and maybe shoulder some of that burden with her. But also, I only have limited bandwidth for hateful nonsense. You know what I mean? I'm just juggling those things, I guess.
Absolutely, and I think you protecting your peace is incredibly important. The thing is you got to let go of the idea that you have to change their mind, because you can lead a horse to water, that whole thing, but you can't make them drink it.
Sure.
It's just, they need to be open to it, and at that point, as an adult, you need to set those boundaries for yourself. So I'm glad you're doing it. And also, what a sucky answer. And I know it is. I wish that I had a better one for you, but the best I can do is commiserate, share my experiences too, so you know that you're not alone,
Well, there's value in that, because sometimes it feels like such an uphill battle, and, you're like, am I the only one in the room that's not saying wild shit? Like, you start gaslighting yourself almost, and you want to avoid that. And I think the other thing is my partner, a lot of it, what's upsetting to her is the idea that her parents are going to be on the wrong side of history, that they're, espousing these views that as society moves forward, we're going to go, oh, that wasn't cool, So that is painful to her too, and I don't know how to help her with that, really.
Yeah. I think that there's so much interpersonal intricacy there, because I'm glad you're talking to a therapist about it, because they can help you suss out what those individual needs are and how to address them with her.
Right.
And I'm glad you're doing it. And If anything, I just want to point that out because I want anyone who's watching or listening and wondering if that's the right choice. That is the right choice. You should do that. Do what Michael is doing. What would Michael do in this instance? Michael would talk to his therapist and figure out how to have these conversations, not only to protect his own peace, but to be there for his partner. Because that is the right way. I like it.
Well, I think, the big thing I got from her was, I feel so much, I'm not going to use the word pressure, but obligation to get along. You want the family to get along, and, we're engaged. So it's like my parents and her, like, you want everybody to, we don't want animosity in the family.
Yeah, and that hateful bullshit just doesn't help.
Correct. And she was like, you have no obligation to entertain nonsense. So that, being a little more, I'm a pretty assertive person. I've been trying to dial it back, but she's like, no, you don't need to. She's like, you are under no obligation to sustain attention to complete bullshit like that.
And if that's the case, then, if that is what you as a couple are deciding to do, and you are, kind of taking that first step to establish, hey, this is wrong, good on you. I appreciate that, just as long as that's, I think my concern here is that there are so many people who take the argument to their family. I'm angry. Maybe I've deconverted and I'm so frustrated at all of this indoctrination and stuff. I'm sorry. I got my attention split for just a second.
No, I know what you're saying. And that's, I do see the risk there, and that's not what's happening. This is more about when a comment is made that's inappropriate, do I push back or not, right? That's where I'm at.
If it's something that you and your partner have talked about and that's the goal that you're having, then I think that's good. It's just, yeah. I see there's so much there. That's why I need to put the asterisk as an asshole on the internet, right? Like I made an assumption that turned out not to be the case in your personal circumstance. So, but Michael, I feel for you, and what a shitty place to be. And I wish you the absolute best. The good thing is, it sounds like you're a sweetheart. So I've got high hopes.
Thank you. That's kind. Thank you, man.
Michael, take care of yourself.
Yeah. Thanks. You too.
Will do. Okay. So yeah, I saw a little bit of confusion in the chat, and I do want to clarify that, when I was talking about, first generation kids, second generation kids, all of that, the way that I think about it and understand it is the first generation is the one who arrived here. And the second generation is the first one, is the generation who was born here. And so when I'm talking about that first generation kid, the quote unquote illegal aliens, those would be first generation kids who show up to school starched and pressed. And at least when and where I was growing up, the khaki shorts with the long white socks and the white t-shirt, maybe some chains, some sunglasses, like, definitely second generation. I was born here, and this is the community and the kind of, social, flag that is being taken on. So I do just want to clarify, because I saw people wondering about that, and that's that. All right, let's move on. Atheopagan, what are you up to? How's it going?
Currently, I am brushing puppies. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I would not call other people if I was doing that. I would just be like so happy to be. How are you? That is, I love that.
Well, to be fair, they do not enjoy it. So it's.
Why?
Keeping because especially, so I'm right now brushing my boyfriend's dog, but my dog especially, who has probably German Shepherd in him, has the double coat, so I have to use a special brush, and it's not pleasant for him to get to that second coat, to get all that hair out that doesn't need to be there anymore. So it's more of a they tolerate it, they don't enjoy it.
Are you using a Furminator?
Yeah.
I have one too, and I had a Newfoundland growing up, and had to go in with that Furminator and get that undercoat out. Yep. And the thing is it can aggravate the skin if you do over the same spot too often. So Personally, you're not going to win the battle today, but you're not going to win the war today, but if you break it up into a bunch of battles over the course of a week or so, it's
like
not
just
as
using
bad.
using a regular brush like every day rather than the fumigator once a week or something. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm thinking of is like, instead of using the Furminator for, 3 hours, using it for...
Oh, it doesn't take that long. It takes like 10, 15 minutes.
Oh, nice. Okay, sorry. In the context for me is like massive freaking dog. So okay.
He's about 40 pounds now.
Oh, okay. Oh, then Doug's gonna have to deal with it. Anyway, we went way off topic. I'm sorry. I was gonna say,
okay.
10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's probably the most they're gonna put up with. But you want to talk about toxic traits of ideology and ideological toxicity and how those things are different. And right now, I'm reading those things, and they just seem like the same two words, just flip flop. So what is going on?
So you were talking about, well, first off, before we get into that, we had a topic a while ago that I just remembered about splitting the artist from the art, and you never got back to me on that, and I'm insulted.
Well, Atheopagan, maybe it's because I'm uncomfortable and I have not come up with a satisfying conclusion for myself.
Don't flip this on me, Eric.
And I don't know. And you know what? You are right to call me on it. And I am still uncomfortable. So until such time as I can say, hey, you know what? I've got a really good take on that. I'm not there yet. So, but that is why.
Okay. So here's my hypothesis. I think that the left has a patriotism problem. I, as a person who's marched with a lot of organizations, I've marched with non-organizations like Antifa, and I've gone to Palestine rallies and yada, yada, yada. I think, I'm Ashio-pagan now? Okay. I think that we should...
you know what? No, I'm okay. You've brought this upon yourself. I am trying so hard to listen actively. Yep. I was not paying attention to the fact that I did not get your name correct. I apologize. Let me fix that. Okay, go ahead.
So, like, for example, I definitely talk to a lot of people on my side of the political spectrum who are very much of the mind that, America bad, America needs to go away, America blah, 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 blah. And I really think that that is problematic for short and long-term goals. I think that we need to recenter patriotism to the point where, if I go to a Palestine rally, I would like to see an American flag. I would like to bring my own because I'm marching for America. I am marching to say, okay, Palestine and what's happening over there is not good for them, and it's definitely not fucking good for us. And as an American, we are better than this, and I want to see America do better than this. And I, at these rallies, see a lot of America must fall, America is just an evil empire, it has no good traits, yada, yada, yada. And to the point where, I think that if we're trying to win, which I hope everyone wants to, I think that we need to refocus that, like a 180-degree turn on how we approach patriotism and what we do with it.
I don't know. Honestly, thinking about it, patriotism makes me uncomfortable. And it makes me uncomfortable because it feels like it is, in a way, giving up one's sense of self in service of promoting this kind of larger, faceless, militarized system that has so much inbuilt shit. I am happy to be an American in that I'm happy to have some hopefully systems to affect change. You know, I'm happy to be an American in that I enjoy, you know, the cultural stuff that comes with being an American. But patriotism to me feels strange. You know, I feel like it's hard for me to separate patriotism from an unblinking support of the military-industrial complex. And so maybe what you're talking about is separating those things. And if that's the case, then I want to follow this. But if that's not what you mean, then I feel like I might be part of the problem that you're talking about.
So I think that another part of this is that we need to separate nationalism from patriotism. I think these are two different things.
Yeah, let's separate them.
Yeah, so nationalism has this core of like, we are Americans and fuck everybody else. You know, it does have a lot of the time an ingrainment of ethno issues as well as non-global issues, like we want to be isolationist or we want to basically subjugate everybody. I think that the fundamental axiomatic ideals of America are something that we should promote. I think a lot of the other shit that came out of it was not following the ideals of America. I think that the ideas of freedom and liberty and the ability to strive for one's own happiness, if you look at what happened that you and I would agree are bad things, the wiping out of the Native Americans to chattel slavery, these do not align with what America's stated ideals are.
I mean, but they do, and the people who wrote, you know, that language informed the first Continental Congress, right, and the Second Continental Congress, the drafts and the letters that we follow, that we, you know, see these kind of quote, these founding fathers talking about, absolutely included slavery, and many of them did own slaves. You know, they absolutely included, inherent, sexism, and a lot of, there's a lot of really shitty stuff there. I feel like what concerns me is that I feel like we can easily fall into the no true Scotsman fallacy when it comes to talking about the will of the founding fathers, what was intended by them. You know, we create this kind of pedestal to put them on and go, well, this was what they wanted. And in the same way, it reminds me of how, you know, different kind of Christian organizations will be like, well, Jesus would have absolutely loved the sinner and hated the sin, and, you know, would have felt justified in being really, really shitty to LGBTQ people. And other people who are just like, Jesus would have absolutely been this way, you know, and been accepting and loving and tolerant, because Jesus was always all. Or another is, you know, money, right? Taxation, right? Jesus absolutely hated taxes and never would. Jesus would have been a libertarian. And then other people think, well, you know, Jesus fed the hungry and didn't charge for healing people and drove the money changers out of the temple. So obviously, you know, Jesus was a socialist. You know, Jesus walked around and had this kind of inbuilt community, right, of apostles that followed him, where he was, you know, spouting up these groups of people who were supportive of each other. Man, Jesus was absolutely a communist, you know. And I feel like there's kind of a version of that happens with the founding fathers, that there is a lot of good stuff. I love, you know, fraternity, you know, equality, right? That whole kind of, you know, both native and French inspired and concepts, and also there's both. We can't say that wasn't there.
I'm not saying it wasn't there. I'm saying I'm saying that when we did these things, we broke from the promise.
I mean, if we select what the promise is and disregard what the rest of it is, yeah.
So where in the Constitution where in the Constitution or in the Declaration, actually I should say the Declaration of Independence, where in the Declaration of Independence say that men should have slaves or that women should be second-class citizens?
Oh, it was fully assumed. But if you take a look at, that like so I think the way that you see that structurally is in the way that power is divvied up. With the example of slavery, I'm trying to mentally separate these out while I'm talking to you. But with the example of slavery, it's the reason why we have a bicameral House, right? We've got the House and we've got the Senate. And the reason that is the case is because we needed a compromise between people who wanted power so that they can continue to, do their slavery stuff, and people who didn't. You have the 3/5 compromise, which needed to happen, or those states would not have joined the Union. It was necessary to put the capital of the United States in the South in order to get the South to sign on to joining the United States. And so its very formation was contingent on kowtowing to slave-owning pieces of shit. It was there from the beginning.
Would that statement you just made counter when we did those things, it broke the promise? Because in my mind, it doesn't. We broke from the promise by doing those things.
I think that the promise is less specific, and we need to recognize that the promise was one of self-determination, moving away from a monarchy. Mm-hmm. We broke the promise when we created a central bank. We broke the promise when we created a standing army. We broke the promise when we, through adding more states, made every single state being added a battleground for political ideology. And we still do that, actually. Take a look at all of the unincorporated, territories of the United States that don't get to vote, because they're not states. We have broken that, and we continue to break that. And I feel like the reason I bring it up is because the nuance there, to me, kind of sucks the color out of the statement. It sucks the power away from it, because it's always been fucked up. And it was fucked up when they created it. Self-determination for who? We like to point out, where does it specifically say women? But it was common, of course not women. Of course not people who owned land. Of course not people of color. That wasn't expected or protected by the founding fathers. It's because we grew morally, we socially changed. I don't think they can. I don't think they deserve to get credit for that.
I mean, I never. To be fair, I never brought up the founding fathers.
This is true. When you say the promise, I think without a little more specificity, that's what I jumped to.
Okay, I jumped to the documents, and I jumped to the ideals that those documents are stated to be from, which is the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, the ideas of liberty and justice. That if, yes, the people that made these are flawed fuckers who made some horrendous mistakes, but the ideas and the philosophy that they derive these things from are the things that we as Americans should be promoting in the things that we do. And when we don't do that is when we are doing the things that you and I, are against.
So why don't we, so could I just skip a step, and instead of being patriotic, just really promote, Hobbes, Locke, Voltaire, French philosophers? Because I feel like, that draws closer to the source of the thing that you're pointing out than necessarily pointing at the United States.
Because why? why are we doing these things? And for me, it's to make the world a better place. And by that, I'm making America a better place. I'm striving for America to strive to those ideals that we wish that we always persevered to do. I want America to live up to those values, and I think that we can, and I think we have the potential to do so.
I think we can do that without needing to say that it's historically always been the case. I think if anything, it makes that concept a revolutionary one, and revolution, I think, is built into the DNA of this country.
Oh, very much so. No, I'm not against that idea at all. No.
What you're talking about is radical and amazing, and that radical amazingness is, I don't know. I guess I just don't want to feel like I'm retroactively justifying it by pointing to a historical piece of it, but by saying, hey, you know what? We endeavor to grow and succeed and promote each other's well-being and create the best society that we can is a extraordinarily better than what we had to begin with, and what our goals now are better than the goals that we had. You know?
Well, everything's taken a step, unfortunately. We have to look at these things, unfortunately, in time and place. You know, would we have loved America to be a, whatever your utopian vision of how a country can exist? But, when, unfortunately, every time that was attempted, it failed spectacularly. I can look at the Paris Commune, I can look at the USSR, I can look at yada yada yada. All these countries that skip steps, as an ideological word for it, went from monarchy to well let's make everything into communes. Well, how are you going to do that when none of the structures are put in place? How are you going to set up a commune in Paris amongst a monarchy surrounding you? You have to lay the foundations of what you want before you get there. You have to have a perception of democracy, in whatever flawed form that it can exist before you can move to a democracy that you can be proud of. Because unless you do that, you have a population that doesn't know what the fuck is going on and how to be involved.
Well, and even more like kind of digging even further into into that, moving from monarchy to another system, right? Maybe it's I just had the word and I'm trying to actively listen, and it just fell right out of my head. But I feel like it's feudalism, right? Like you look at feudal societies, and this is just in Europe, that we're talking about here. But you have feudalism, and if you want to move into a different style of governance, that just changes the top, but it's still feudalism.
Yeah.
And I think that the way we can move into other forms of that, really honestly, I think the biggest impediment to that kind of social utopia is capitalism. It has nothing to do with a lot of the rest. I think that there's a self-perpetuating capitalism that continues to stratify people and to encourage disparity. And we need to think about our relationship with money, with things, and with, classes in the way that we do. So I think that what you're talking about, we're nowhere close to. I think we're still in a kind of feudalism,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I think, so one of the reasons why I call myself a social democrat and not anything more to the left is because I think that as what I was saying before, those foundations need to exist. If we want worker control over the means of production, we need to know that we need to actually have workers that know what that means.
But aren't you just creating a new class? If anything, you're just shuffling the deck, but it's still feudalism. It's just right. Like there's a fundamental piece there that if you change the order, right? If you take the worker and put them in the owner class, do you think that a lower class is not going to develop? We're just changing
I don't really separate the lower and working class, personally.
Oh yeah, no. So using communist language, if we were to, break down the bourgeoisie and have a proletariat that, took the means of production, I think I'm disillusioned enough that I think it is a short skip to seeing just a new bourgeoisie. And that the reason why there's always going to be a proletariat and bourgeoisie is because capitalism insists upon it being so.
I guess this is a conversation we'd have to delve really deep into, because I think there's a couple of things that I would disagree with, but we would get very...
I agreed, and you started it. I just want to say that.
Yes.
But I see, look at that. I can actually have a more nuanced conversation. It's not just me saying I don't know. That said, Ethiopagan, I look forward to seeing your name every time you call in.
Thank you so much, Eric. I love you. Be safe. You too. Give my love to V.
Will do. Take care.
I'm going to go back to brushing puppies.
Oh, please do. I love that. Take care.
Bye.
Oh, that's right. Eric has a problem with communism. I don't like it. I think there are issues. You want to talk about it? That's going to be awkward. Let's do it. Not today. We're almost at the end of the episode. In the meantime, though, I do want to talk to Keith while I still can. Keith, in New Jersey, you are live on the show.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
I am all over. You never know what's going to happen with a call-in show, and I was not expecting AI and communism. But here we are. We're doing our best.
Well, this call has nothing to do with either.
Oh, see, look at that. But I'm going to do my absolute best. I'm putting your name in the lower third. I have to apologize. I did not even get to read what your topic is. So do you want to set us up? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so yesterday I was at a local festival, and I was with a friend of mine and my girlfriend, and we were eating at one of those, stand-up tables when you grab something from a vendor. And my girlfriend and my friend are standing facing me, and I'm facing the other way.
Oh, do we need to put like a trigger warning on this?
Maybe it was an assault.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, trigger warning for people who have get really squicked out by conversations about assault. We are going to talk about assault in this conversation. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it just so happened, like, as soon as we started, eating, this guy that was behind my girlfriend and my friend was with his girlfriend. She was eating at the table, and he's kind of like just walking in a little circle, like looking at his phone and this and that. And all of a sudden, with his left hand, he smacked the side of her head so hard that her glasses came off, and he broke the arm of the glass. The glass was off. And I was like, what the fuck? And he didn't hear me, but I was just I try to stop myself when I get into like an emotional reaction like that, to think first. And I'm thinking, like, I don't have a video of it, so like, what evidence do I have? And all this stuff is going through my head. If I go get a policeman, like, are they going to believe me? Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I started videoing right after that. So I have a video of the couple, and I felt so bad for this girl. She was, she wasn't even crying. She was just kind of like trying to, like, I guess, muscle through it and put up with it. And she was distraught. She was trying to eat. This guy's just on his phone pacing. And like I said, I have a video of them both. I would love for some ideas on how I could post this in order to maybe have this guy identified somehow, and maybe it'll trigger some memories in other people that know him, that he does this repeatedly or whatever. Or should I just delete the video and forget about it? I went to the website or the Facebook group of this festival, but they don't allow public posts. So I thought maybe I can post it somewhere else, because I know it's on Facebook. You could post anonymously somewhere or whatever. I don't really know much about that, and then tag that group somehow, or I don't know. I was just looking for some ideas. What do you think?
Well, Keith, I need to tread carefully, because this show is also live streaming to Twitch. And I want to make sure that I am regarding terms of service as well as I can. So I think the responsible thing for me to say is to file a police report and give that over.
Could I do that, though?
Yeah, why not? I witnessed an assault.
I could do that.
I witnessed an assault.
Okay.
Here's what I have. I mean, and that's it. You may not hear about it again, but that's definitely something you can do. And I have definitely seen, whole TikTok groups of people who post those kind of things, and Reddit subreddits where people will do some citizen sleuthing to find out where the fuck this is happening and try to reach out and provide support to victims and or socially shame and ostracize the abuser. And that is deeply cathartic to me, although that is not particular. There's an entire ethical conversation to be had.
Right.
So tiptoeing around that topic, I would do both and have more hopes for the latter than the former. But I don't advise that, because I should not advise that.
Would you recommend any group, or I wouldn't even know where to post it other than tagging that festival, in my feed somehow, which I don't know how much traction that's going to really get. The festival was only for 2 weekends. Yesterday was the last day, so I'm not really sure, what would happen after that. But what do you think would get the most eyeballs, I guess?
So messaging the coordinators of the festival, let somebody there know. Yeah. I'm sorry?
No, good. I didn't think of that. It's been eating me all day. That's why I had a call.
Reach out to the coordinators of the festival and say, hey, I witnessed an assault, and this is the footage that I have. And then filing a police report are two things that you can absolutely do. And then there's a deep ethical conversation that a lot of people have, and the risks of misidentifying people and innocent people getting harassed versus, seeing some kind of justice. And then also you need to take into account that, an abuse victim, see something, say something, right? You saw it, now say something. And reaching out and making sure that, you're not the only one sitting on this footage is important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody to do that in the middle of a festival and smack the side of her head like that, this is definitely not the first time this happened, or that this guy did this. There's just no way. He was so comfortable in doing it. It was shocking to me. I just couldn't fucking believe it.
Yeah.
But
absolutely agreed.
All right. I appreciate some of the pointers. I'm going to definitely.
Yeah. And for those people who are, it can be dangerous to put yourself in the middle of a physical altercation, and I don't advise that everybody do it. In as much as anybody can, or feel safe to or are able to, that is a risk, but that is not something that you should feel expected to do or feel bad about not doing, because you don't know if that person could have a gun. You don't know if that person could have a knife, and you don't know if that person could, so just see something, say something is it. And organizers of the festival, file a police report And then read the comments, because I'm sure that there are people who have a whole lot more like good information that they can share that could be useful for you.
Okay, yeah, good. I'm gonna contact the festival for sure. I appreciate it.
And Keith?
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
Tell me about it.
Seriously, fuck that guy.
It's been eating me all day. I just had to get some ideas from people.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care of yourself.
All right, buddy. You too.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
I don't know, you guys. There's a lot to be said there. Would I put myself in the middle of something like that? It really depends, you know? Not everybody who is in that kind of situation is ready to leave or is capable of or needs, a lot of people need to make plans when it comes to leaving an abusive, like there are so many nuances there, and it is so difficult to make sweeping statements. So I'm doing my best to walk the line. Maybe I screwed up. I don't know, but I'm sure the comments will let me know. That said, I'm going to have something new on this screen next week, and I'm really excited about it. If you like the show and you want to listen to the podcast ad-free, if you want to listen to this episode as a podcast in the year 2024, the only way that's going to happen is by going to patreon.com/skepticgeneration. If you are waiting for it, no worries. I'm putting out 2 episodes every single week out as a podcast until we get caught up. And that's going to be happening at the beginning of next year, when we're fully caught up. That said, I just want to say thank you to the volunteers. Thank you, Elliott, for coming and joining and hanging out. I really appreciate it. And I'm really happy to see all of the engagement, all of the, stuff we're talking about in community posts, everybody in the comments on the clips, and the massive spike on the podcast. And I'm really I love it. I love it. If you like this show and you want it to get out there, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Every little bit helps, and it'll help us get out to some new eyeballs. That said, thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I'm Eric Murphy, and I'm glad we had this talk. Oh, wait, no, hold on, stay, hold on, don't change the channel. I need to read Super Chats. I read Super Chats at the end of every episode, and I have not done it so far today. My Unfinished Journey sent $6.66. Thank you. It says, hail Neo, hail Nero, hail Eric and SR, and hail Constructive Dialogue. Thank you, My Unfinished Journey. My Unfinished Sock said, no, I'm not done yet. My Unfinished Sock says, use all your socks to like and share. Thank you, My Unfinished Sock. And Fern Lovebond sends $2, says, recommend The Macho Paradox by Jackson Katz. Thank you, Fern Lovebond. Now we can do that. I'm Eric Murphy. I'm glad we had this talk. See you next week.